Madhava Kunja Bihari You can start with the pranam mantra. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnanasakaya Chakshurunavatam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhupada Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Lokadanayam Pradati Swapanadikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Udapadakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavansha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sarvanaraganathamitam Dam Sajivam Sarvadam Sarvadutam Prajana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Lakanamrita Shri Vishakhanvitam Shah Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Nidhyamini Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashyati Deshatarane Panchakalpatarudasya Kripa Sindhudaya Patitanam Bhavami Vishnu Devi Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Ram Ram Hare Hare. So thank you everyone for coming on a coldish Sunday evening. Before I begin, I would like to thank the management of ISKCON Bergen, His Grace Ramchandra Prabhu, Ram Tulsi Prabhu, for giving the opportunity. I'm usually on the floor, on the kirtan, on the harmonium, so it's a bit different to be on the Vyasasana, but nevertheless, I'm grateful to the management and all of you for allowing me to be here. I seek the blessings. I see many senior Vaishnavas here, Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis, so I seek your blessings also, and some dear friends as well. So hopefully I can speak something of value. Today's topic is Bhagavad Gita chapter 10, which is entitled The Opulence of the Absolute, which is Vibhuti Yoga. So just as a level set, the agenda is going to be, we do a quick intro, and then we will be discussing the essence of Bhagavad Gita, Chatur Shloki, which is from verse 8 to 11, and then we do a brief summary of chapter 10. And when I say brief, it's going to be very brief, because most of the time we'll be spending on the fourth bullet, which is what's the need for this detailed knowledge. That being said, so we heard a very nice lecture from Rohan Prabhu last week on chapter 9. And chapter 9 ends with Manmana Bhagavad Bhakto, where Krishna says, engage your mind always in thinking of me and become my devotee. And there's always a question raised that, okay, we think of Krishna, but there's always a question how to think of Krishna. How can we do it in our day-to-day life? Especially most of us are working professionals, so in the office and also at home. Sometimes it's also difficult to practice at home, whether you're at school, college, office, home. So how to do that? So Krishna explains in this chapter the many places, areas we can see him in this creation. So Krishna is not only the creator, he's also within this creation, and that will be kind of discussed further on in the slides. A lot of people also say, show me God, show me God. So Prabhupada used to often say, have you had water? And yes, then think of that taste is Krishna. And then he would give many examples like that. So it is basically not very difficult to see Krishna if we have Shastra Chakshu, as we call. And just as an example, Prabhupada used to just give once, there was a talk and he said, what about drunkards? So he said drunkards, even if they think that wine is the taste of Krishna, they will make progress. But just as a disclaimer, this should not be used as a license for anyone to say, oh, we heard in ISKCON that, now wine is allowed as long as you think of Krishna. So I hope that does not happen. And if it does, I'm not taking responsibility. So with that being said, we just discussed the essence of Bhagavad Gita in the Chaturshloki. So these 4 verses from 8 to 11, they contain the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. And they basically help us summarize the Gita. And I recently heard one nice thing which I did not know earlier. They actually also talk about the 3 stages of spirituality, which is Sambandha, Abhidhaya, and Prayojana. Anybody would like to say what is Sambandha? I'm sure most of you know it. Relationship. Relationship with? Yeah. The Krishna and also the universe, it is said, it is explained. Yeah, but that's right. And Abhidhaya? Yes, Prabhu.
Means to achieve it.
Means to achieve it, yes, the process, correct. And Prayojana, what does Prayojana mean?
Why we do it? Intention.
The goal, yes, the goal, correct. The fruit of it. And we have just a quick definition of Sambandha, Abhidhaya, Prayojana, just to, for those who may not be familiar with these concepts. So like Mataji was saying, it's knowledge of one's relationship with God and the universe. Abhidhaya is the practice and application of this knowledge in our day-to-day life, because like we discussed, Shishi Nimanitai ki jai, Shishi Radha Shyam Sundar ki jai. It's easy to say, yeah, come to temple, but like you said, we come to temple sometimes once a week, sometimes twice a week. So how do we see day to day? So basically, Prayojana is the practical application of that knowledge. Hare Krishna, yeah. And Abhidhaya. And Prayojana is the fruit, the goal, which is Prema Pramartha Mahan. And these verses from 10.8 to 10.11 actually cover Sambandha, Abhidhaya, Prayojana. Would anyone like to recite these verses very quickly? It's on the screen. Anyone?
Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate.
Just one person.
Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samannitaha.
Translation.
I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts.
Thank you, Prabhu. So in this we can see the first 2 lines are Sambandha, Abhidhaya, and the last is Prayojana, which is the goal. Similarly, we can recite 10.9. Any volunteers? Thank you, Mataji. The translation is, the thoughts of my pure devotees dwell in me. Their lives are fully devoted to my service, and they derive great satisfaction and bliss from always enlightening one another and conversing about me. This verse actually covers Abhidhaya and Prayojana. And then we go to 10.10.
Tesam satata yuktana bhajatam pritipurvakam dadami buddhi yogam tam yenam upayantite. To those who are constantly devoted to serving me with love, I give the understanding by which they can come to me.
Thank you, Prabhu. This is Abhidhaya, and the last one is also Abhidhaya. Maybe somebody from Mataji's side. Or, thank you, Mataji. Who was that, by the way? I couldn't see. Oh, thank you, Mataji. Thank you, Mataji. For those who couldn't hear, this will be the translation again. To show them special mercy, I, dwelling in their hearts, destroy with the shining lamp of knowledge the darkness born of ignorance. So, brief summary of chapter 10. So, chapter 10, as we know, when chapter 9 ends, Krishna says, Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto, and then Krishna kind of continues describing his opulence in chapter 10. And then Arjuna is not satisfied from hearing this. In the 18th verse, he says, "Can you tell me more? I want to hear more about it. I'm not satisfied. I'm not satiated." And then Krishna says in the 19th verse, "Yes, I will tell you all of my splendorous manifestations, but only those which are prominent of Arjuna. For my opulences are limitless." Because as we know, the Lord has limitless opulences. So here he's only focusing on the key ones. And these are some of the ones he mentioned. He says, of the demigods, I am Indra. And then he says, of immovable things, I am the Himalayas. And then he says, among men, I am the monarch. Of weapons, I am the thunderbolt. And then he says, among subduers, I am time. And he goes on, there's a big list of opulences that Krishna mentions. He says, I'm the Ganges amongst the rivers, I'm the Ganges amongst the Pandavas, I'm Arjuna, and so on and so forth. So it's nice to know about these things. It's nice to know all these opulences. So Krishna states about 82 opulences here in this chapter. But in 10.42, he says something a little interesting, which I personally liked. So I thought the discussion will be around that topic. And he says, but what need is there, Arjuna, for all this detailed knowledge? With a single fragment of myself, I pervade and support this entire universe. So indeed, the question is, what's the need for this detailed knowledge? And if you look at it intellectually, like we have, Prabhupada has given us so many scriptures, Srimad Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, Chaitanya Charitamrita, and so on and so forth. And in that, there is discussion of Sankhya Yoga. Bhagavad Gita talks about body and soul. Then there are so many dynasties explained in Srimad Bhagavatam. They talk about so many pastimes of Krishna, and talks about creation also. So in one sense, intellectually, if we try to wrap our head around all this, it's going to be a failure, basically. By no means am I a scholar, but I was trying to do something like that in my initial days, and I was failing and finding it very difficult to understand Bhagavad Gita. And I approached my spiritual master, who was not my spiritual master back then, and I said, this is only bhakti. So Prabhupada is only saying bhakti in every topic, every line is bhakti only. So how to understand this? And my Guru Maharaj, just based on my psychophysical nature, he understood that I need to take a different approach. So he suggested that, have you read Prabhupada Lila Amrit? And I said, no. What is Prabhupada Lila Amrit now? So he said, no, you should first go and read Prabhupada Lila Amrit. And I still don't have an answer to it, but when I read Prabhupada Lila Amrit, somehow the Gita made sense. I don't know if anybody else had that experience, but as soon as I read Lila Amrit, and I read it cover to cover, Lila Amrit, and then I read the Bhagavad Gita, and I'm like, now it's making sense. But until the point being, intellectually, it's going to be very difficult for us to wrap our head if we try to use our logic and arguments. It's said even Ananta Shesha, with his thousands of hoods, has been reciting the glories of Krishna from time immemorial, and he has not reached the end of that. And what to speak of us? And there have also been many philosophers in the past, East, West, and they have tried to understand the absolute truth. What is the absolute truth? And each one has come up with, a different conclusion, some philosophy, some logic. And in this regard, there's a very interesting verse in the Mahabharata when Maharaj Yudhishthir approaches Yaksha, and he said, I have few questions. I think most of you would have heard of, the questions that Yaksha asked. And one of the questions he asked was, where can dharma be found? So where can dharma be found was the question. And the answer was, the answer that Yudhishthira Maharaj gave was, Tarko pratishto shruteyo vibhinna nasa vrishir yasya matim na bhinna dharmasya tattvam nihitam guhayam mahajano yena gatasya pantha. The meaning is that logic is going to be inconclusive to find dharma. To know what is dharma, actual dharma, it's going to be very difficult to find purely based on arguments and logic. The scriptures, there are so many scriptures. There are scriptures in Hindu religion, Muslim religion, Christianity, and so many others. How does one come to the absolute truth? And again, this is another thing that I used to think about a lot, that everyone is saying a different thing. What is the actual truth? I did not say absolute truth, but I said, what is the actual truth? And how do you find it? It's so difficult. Every guru is saying a different thing. Every book, religious book, is saying a different thing. Some say deity worship is okay, some say deity worship is not okay. And I tasted a few places. वो कहते हैं ना घाट का पानी पिया है. So I've tasted Buddhism a little bit. They used to chant Namyo Renge Kyo Lord, so I did that for some time. And then I went to the Brahma Kumaris also. I stayed in the ashram. Stayed in the sense I was there for a couple of weeks just to see what they do. And कहते हैं light को देखो. Light को कब तक देख सकते हैं? So, and then I also went to Art of Living. Then one of my aunts was a big follower of Sai Baba, so she introduced me to Sai Baba. And he produced something impressive initially, but then the philosophy didn't make sense. There was no philosophy actually. There was no philosophy, unfortunately. And then thankfully, I met devotees in Australia and now here, and they kind of guided me. So basically, dharma is very difficult to find. And this is also true for the absolute truth. Based on the power of logic or my intelligence, it is not going to be possible. It's going to be result in failure. In fact, like I was saying about philosophers, there was a very famous philosopher in Greek philosophy called Plato. How many of you have heard of him? You've heard of him, yeah. Very great philosopher. He was so great that it is said that the other philosophies that came after him were just footnotes to what Plato said. And despite that, one of his very famous disciples, Aristotle, he kind of refuted and argued everything against him, like everything that he said. So how to understand what is the absolute? कोई कुछ कहता है, कोई कुछ कहता है, and then it just happens. Sometimes we hear somebody and he said, yeah, no, this makes sense. Until we hear the next person and say, oh, no, now this makes more sense. So how to kind of understand the truth? So intellectually, the answer is, there is no use of this detailed knowledge of knowing Krishna's opulences, 82 opulences, or 100 opulences, or thousands, or millions, or billions, or trillions of opulences. There is absolutely no use. But there is a use. If you think of it from a devotional perspective, from an experiential perspective, that this is my Lord, then there is meaning to it. We are living here in Bergen, which is part of New Jersey, which is part of United States, which is part of this world, and then we go to universe, etc., etc. And millions of such universes are floating in the air almost. And millions of the universes come out just by the exhale of Vishnu. And that is in one sense quite amazing. I mean, it is incomprehensible, at least to my mind, but I have faith. I have faith that scriptures are true. I haven't seen it, but it's amazing. And if you think of it, if there is a person who's doing it, it's wonderful. How can anybody exhale and inhale universes? Normally we exhale and inhale, different viruses and bacteria, but how can you inhale and exhale universes? It's absolutely wonderful. So from a devotional side, it is very, very wonderful to know that our Lord is so great. There's a science called a science of how do humans flourish. There's a science that studies this. So it is said that humans flourish the most when they feel themselves very small in front of nature. They say that stress levels plummet significantly when somebody sees, they appreciate the majesty of the say the mountains. When you climb the mountain peak, or you just, see the creation, you look at the stars, you look at the sun, the moon, and you're like, wow. And they say that's when the stress levels kind of really plummet for us. In fact, one of my favorite verses in the Bhagavad Gita is Matta Parataram Nanyat Kinchidasti Dhananjaya Mai Sarvam Sutre Maniganaiva. So just like, the whole creation rests on me, just like pearls on a thread. And it is said that the beauty of a necklace is understood by how much you cannot see the thread. Like, that's one of the analogies they say to understand how a necklace is made, or how well made a necklace is. So that's a very wonderful kind of analogy that explains how Krishna stays in the background. And I'm sure some of you have noticed that too, that in our lives sometimes good things happen and sometimes bad things happen, because that's the world we live in. But we all see that Krishna is in the background. Somehow he's always in the background, and he prefers to stay in the background. He never comes in the front. He always stays in the background. And sometimes it takes me a lot of shaking. Devotees have to shake me up. And they say, Prabhu, this is Krishna's mercy. And then I wake up and say, oh yeah, this is actually Krishna's mercy. Whether it's a good thing or a bad thing, Krishna somehow always stays in the background. And that's to me a little mysterious actually. Why would somebody do everything for me and still stay in the background? There's a very nice pastime mentioned in our scriptures about Lord Brahma when he went to meet Krishna in Dwarka. And as we know, our Brahma has 4 heads. So when he reached the gate, he said to the gatekeeper, I'm here to meet Krishna and my name is Brahma. And so the gatekeeper said, okay, let me pass the message to Krishna and see, if he's expecting you. Because in Dwarka, they were expecting big people. So he said, okay, let me go and check. And before the gatekeeper reached Krishna, as a super soul, he understood that Brahma is a little full of himself right now. He's a bit, sometimes it happens to us also, or to me I should say. We are a bit full of ourselves. So Krishna very intelligently asked the gatekeeper to convey the message, which Brahma? And Brahma was like, what do you mean, which Brahma? Like, I am Brahma, I can say, So he was a little embarrassed. And then Krishna invited him inside. And then when he came inside, he saw that there is not just one Brahma with 4 heads. There's Brahma with 6 heads, 8 heads, 10 heads, 100, 1,000, millions of heads. Now Brahma has only 4 heads. And it is said that all of them, when they paid obeisances to Krishna, their helmets made a crashing sound. And so that's the devotion, that kind of evokes devotion in us, that how wonderful is our Krishna. Moving on, it's also important to know what's the significance of that recognition, like of that devotion that comes. It should ideally have an emotional expression from our side. And when I mean by emotional, I don't mean that we start rolling on the ground or we start, doing artificial things with our tears, everything. But basically, it means it comes from the deepest core of our heart, and sometimes we can feel it. We can feel it in some classes, whether from a Guru Maharaj or from Prabhupada or from senior Vaishnavas, that there is something special about this. We can feel it in the prasadam also. Like sometimes, even if it's as simple as khichdi prasadam, we feel there is something different in this khichdi today. I remember in Melbourne, we used to have breakfast only khichdi, and I used to live near the temple, so every day was khichdi prasadam. And initially when I said, I'm like, khichdi every day? How can you eat khichdi every day? And then I went to Melbourne, and because I was staying close to the temple, I used to go, morning, and then sometimes afternoon, because I was working, and then in the evenings also. And I was there for almost 8-9 years, and I used to go almost about 5 to 6 days a week. Every single day I would have khichdi, and I would love it. It was the best khichdi, and different types of khichdi obviously, but khichdi and salad, that's it. And that's what we all ate, and we genuinely liked it. How? I don't have an answer to it. I don't know how we all like khichdi. So the point being, the result of that knowledge should be a change, a transformation of heart. It should not be just memorizing verses. I'm not good at that anyway. But in general, it is not just bookish knowledge. It is just not giving classes. There should be, and there must be, a change of heart. And I'm still waiting for that change of heart to happen. But I feel, with devotees' mercy, it will happen at some stage in life. But the goal of that emotional response when we see Krishna, it should not be that, oh, it's my Krishna. That will be, more like a newer devotee who does not know the philosophy holistically. But we should see Krishna more holistically, that how wonderful is our Krishna, and it's worshipped in different ways across different religions, across different cultures, etc. The Srimad Bhagavatam says at the very beginning that the highest truth is reality distinguished from illusion for the benefit, for the welfare of all. So in this verse, reality distinguished from illusion is actually the intellectual part, if you look at it. But for the welfare of all, it actually has a relational concept. A relational concept as in there is care, there is affection, there is love of Krishna. And so it is not really an intellectual exercise from our side to say we know everything, we have captured the absolute truth. It's more about expressing our devotion, whether it's in the form of just doing deity worship, just doing simple kirtan, just preparing khichdi, and whatever our skills are, and whatever Krishna has given us. Srila Prabhupada also used to sign all his letters. Sometimes Prabhupada's letters were quite heavy, as we all know. Sometimes they had to convey a very strong message to his disciples if he felt that his disciples needed correction. But at the end, if you notice, Prabhupada always signed the letter as your ever well-wisher. That's very personal. So you're giving all the knowledge, you're saying this is wrong, this is right, this is actually the meaning of Shastra, this is what is meant by this verse, this is what you need to do with temple, but you always signed with your ever well-wisher, which is again a very personal and an emotional expression, because he's combining the intellect with the emotional side. And Krishna's greatness is a devotee's natural response to Krishna is of amazement and affection. And this is actually also mentioned in Govardhan Lila. We often use the word achintya as something that is hard to understand, or it really hurts our head to understand that knowledge. But achintya can also mean just amazement, like how wonderful is our Lord. In fact, in the 10th canto in Srimad Bhagavatam, after Krishna lifts the Govardhan hill and then he puts it down after correcting Indra, there's a chapter called Wonderful Krishna, in which the gopis, the gopas, the elderly gopis, everyone is only discussing how wonderful is our Krishna, how he lifted the hill, how he has killed so many demons, and how when he was a little boy, he killed Putana also. And they used to sometimes wonder that, is our Krishna an unusual personality, or is he even the supreme personality? And then they would forget about it. And then Krishna would be just a friend or a son, and then they would go about life in general. Same thing happened to Mother Yashoda also, when she asked Krishna to open his mouth, and she saw the universe, and she was like, no, this is something else, carry on. And the nice thing about this, which I personally like, is that Krishna forgets his godhood in Vrindavan. He's not really loved as God. He's loved as a friend, as a son, and so many other relationships that he shares with the Brajvasis there. Even Arjuna's response when he heard Krishna's many opulences, it was not that, oh really, are you the source of everything? Oh really? Like, no. He said, Param Brahma Param Dham Pavitram Paramam Bhavam. So he said, you're the greatest. So he did not say that, he was not doing an intellectual exercise, oh really, like, are you the source? Okay, I found it, kind of thing. So the second thing this knowledge does, if we don't use it in an intellectual capacity, is we see everything in the creation as part of Krishna. The wealth, the beauty, the fame, the strength, the renunciation. Every good that we see in this world, we can see it as, we can see Krishna in that. That beauty may not be part of our culture. It may not be in Krishna consciousness also. Might be some other religion, might be some other country, might be some other nation. Everything can be different. But because we have learned to see the essence and we see everything as an expansion and see Krishna's presence in all of those things, we can actually appreciate even despite our differences. A newer devotee, like I was saying, he or she can be of the mindset that, Krishna is just mine. And but for us, we see that no, Krishna is for everyone. And it is so wonderful that our Krishna, he comes in different forms, in different religions, in different countries, and people worship him differently. And he accepts everyone's service according to their capacity. There is no black, white, Indian, American, Canadian, Australian. It's all, a personal relationship that Krishna has. So the question begs again, I don't know if we'll end at 6:30 or maybe take another couple of minutes. The question begs that, what is the use of this knowledge? And the answer is, in one sense, quite straightforward. There is no use, in one sense. Intellectually, if you look at it, there is no use. But there is a big use if we use this knowledge to inculcate devotion in our lives. When we hear Srimad Bhagavatam, when we read the pastimes there, those are actual pastimes. Those are not fairy tales as people think. And it took me a while to understand that. And obviously I got thanks to the guidance I received from senior devotees, my spiritual master, and many Shiksha Gurus. But it actually talks to different situations of our life. So even if this class did not make sense to you, if you open the pages of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita or Bhagavatam, we can almost assure you that you will find something that will speak to you. So it is really important for us to read and hear scriptures. I try and make it a point to hear at least once a day, depending upon the schedule from Prabhupada or one of our senior Vaishnavas in our community, and then read a bit if possible. Reading is sometimes not possible, but then at least here. So the request is, if we can all spend, even 5 minutes a day hearing from Prabhupada or whoever speaker that you like to hear from, or read from a book that inspires you. For me personally, Srimad Bhagavatam is very inspiring to me, because not only it has pastimes of Krishna, but it also has very nice philosophy that can be practically applied in one's life. And through all these different stories and details in our scriptures, we will somehow, someday, find our story also. That's happened to a lot of devotees that I know. Hasn't happened to me yet, but I do get some glimpses every now and then. That's enough for me to keep going for now. So again, the question is, what is the need of this detailed knowledge? And this is the actual use of this detailed knowledge, that we have to read the scriptures or hear from our spiritual masters, I would say, not master but masters, try to inculcate that devotion in our heart, not to approach these things from an intellectual standpoint as much as possible. And again, some people are oriented more intellectually, and that's perfectly fine. But the end results should be not just trying to theorize things or trying to capture the absolute truth. It will be a futile attempt. It won't happen in this life. It won't happen in the next life. It won't happen ever. Krishna has to be approached through devotion. So that is the actual use of this knowledge that Krishna talks about in chapter 10. With that, I'd like to end. I don't know if we have time for questions, but if there's a question, happy to take that. Oh, do we have time? Yeah, we have time. Yes, Prabhuji. First Prabhu can go. Yes, Prabhu. Then you. Yes, Prabhu.
Thank you so much. Wonderful lecture. At the beginning of chapter 10, Lord Krishna is saying that I'm going to tell you something more confidential, right? Bhuyeva sume paramam vachan.
Yes.
So you already heard the most confidential in number 9. So what is that more confidential here?
Prabhu always asks tricky questions. So based on what I understood,
Thank you.
so just to make sure I understood your question, you are saying that Krishna is saying that he will share something more confidential in chapter 10.
The first verse of the chapter 10, he says, we can open it over here.
I can open it, 1 second. Yes, Prabhu.
You can get the meaning, or should I can do the meaning also, right?
Yes, Prabhu, please.
So, the Supreme Personality of Godhead saying, Oh, listen again, oh mighty Arjuna, because you are my very dear friend, my dear friend, for your benefit, I shall speak to you further, giving knowledge that is better than what I have already explained. So he is going to say something, Shrunu me paramam vacham, right? So what is that? He already said the most confidential knowledge in chapter 9. So what is that more better than most confidential knowledge here in chapter 10?
So he doesn't use the word confidential here, he just says better.
Better.
So what I'm thinking is, and I'm open to being corrected if anybody knows, but I'm thinking that Krishna hasn't really expanded on his opulences in chapter 9. He just gives a hint. And towards the end, he says, Manmana Bhagavad Bhakto. He doesn't really give his opulences like for a common man to understand, like how to see him on a daily basis. Like when you look at Mother Ganga, that's nothing but Krishna, basically. Of the alphabets, I'm A. Of the Vedas, I'm Samaved. Of different things he says. So those are, I feel, more practical for us. And I'm sure that when Krishna spoke this, he knew that people in Kali Yuga will also be using this knowledge. It is not just meant for devotees; it's meant for the common man also. So in that sense, I feel it is better because it is more accessible. But that is just my understanding. But if anyone has a better answer or they know the actual answer, then please feel free to chime in. Prabhu, if you know the answer, please add.
Thank you so much. That was so nice. Yes.
Yeah. Prabhu, you had a question.
Hi, Krishna.
Hari Bol.
Prabhu, I just wanted to ask you, like, if you have any tips for moving from, like, thinking about everything intellectually or logically, right? And like reading in terms of not thinking about thinking about all these things logically and trying to understand logically.
So your question is that how to move away from that?
Right.
Is that the question? Yeah. So just to clarify, Krishna did not said move away from logic. He was just saying that we should not use only logic to understand him, and also that logic and intellectual exercise should not be the end goal for us. Prabhupada used to always say, don't follow blindly. Don't be a blind follower, which means we have to exercise our intelligence. We have to use logic, we have to use arguments. But the point here is that we should not study with the aim of only and only using it as an intellectual exercise. It has its place. It has its place and it should be used. If you have the ability to do so, you should. We have many scholars. One of them is about to come here, Amrendra Prabhu. He's a scholar. We have Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. We have so many scholars in ISKCON. Are we saying they are not devotees or they are moving away to something else? No. They are using that logic, they're using that intelligence to move to Krishna. So it's not that we don't have to use our intelligence or our logic or whatever Krishna has gifted us with, but the goal is that not to make this only an intellectual exercise. Ki kashi hota, kashte se hota, the Sankhya philosophy of neti, not this, not this, not this. So we should definitely use our intelligence and logic, but not make it the end goal. The end goal is to somehow come to this devotional mood. Many of our spiritual masters are scholars, and some are not scholars actually, but they are the best of the devotees. So how to see it? The point is, if you're a simple-hearted devotee, Prabhupada used to say this very often. If you want to understand Krishna consciousness through logic, through argument, through intelligence, we have all the books here. But if you don't have that intelligence, just chant Hare Krishna, you'll still get the goal. So the point is we have to get to the goal. The point is not, the point is if you have the intelligence, if you think, yes, I need this is my psychophysical nature, I need to understand things, I cannot accept blindly. I cannot, and I'm one of them, I cannot take things blindly. I need to understand things to a certain extent. But then, after a point, there is a time and place for it. It is just not an intellectual exercise. So the answer to your question would be, we don't have to move away from it, we just have to use that to reach Krishna in a practical way, in a devotional way. Not just become a yogi or an intellectual scientist or an intellectual gymnast saying, aisa hota to vaisa hota, vaisa hota to aisa hota. No, there should be structure, there should be logic. And our scriptures are full of that. Srimad Bhagavatam is full of logic, arguments. What is Srimad Bhagavatam? In Bhagavad Gita has all the logic that a scientific person will possibly have, and it has all the answers for that. So the answer is we don't have to move away from it, we just don't want to make that the sole aim of our Krishna consciousness. Does that answer your question, Prabhu, a little bit? Anybody else would like to answer? Ramchandra Prabhu, do you have anything to add to it? Okay. Prabhuji, Mahaprabhu, do you have anything to add to it? Anybody else? Okay. Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you so much for a wonderful lecture as always. So, Prabhu, in a devotee's day of life, is chanting and one chants only chants and really doesn't associate or doesn't socialize or doesn't come out but is constantly chanting, would that be enough for a person? Or one has to do more from chanting and seva and book distribution and so on and so forth? So what would be your point of view?
Yeah.
Thank you.
My answer is what I heard from Prabhupada, and his answer was and is that most of us don't have the capacity to chant 24 hours a day. We don't have that taste. And Prabhupada said, that's why I have built you these temples and have these services so you can remain engaged. It's also said in Kali Yuga, it's very rare for somebody to be a pure Bhajanandi, which is somebody who just chants. It's difficult. It's very difficult. So, and again, this is based on what I've heard from Prabhupada, and I've personally experienced it also. So it's a combination. So again, I'm not blindly following it. So I use my logic also. I experience also, and I see others also. Others find it difficult too. So based on all those things from what I've heard, from what I've experienced and what I have seen, I think just chanting, it's going to be hard, Prabhuji. It's going to be hard for most of us. There might be some exceptions, but based on what Prabhupada said, I haven't seen those exceptions yet. Maybe somebody in Vrindavan, somebody might have seen, they have so much taste, but 99.9% Prabhupada said, we all have to do our chanting, our seva, and for me, most important thing is association. If we think that we can chant in isolation, I'm very sorry to say that will not last very long. And again, this is something I have heard, and unfortunately I've also experienced in life. I was in India for a couple of months for almost 6 months with little to no devotee association, and I plummeted to an extent without even knowing. Like, I was thinking this is life. Like, TV was on, and this was in 2011 when I was in Krishna consciousness for about 3-4 years then. So I had some knowledge. I'd read and understood the basic philosophy, but still, I got attacked in such a way. My old friends came back, school friends came back, and slowly Maya just came in. And one day, one of my devotees from Australia, he said, "When are you coming back?" I said, "I think I'm fine here. I'm having a good life here, Prabhu. Like, it's fine." I used to chant. I was not initiated. I used to chant, but slowly, Maya just pulled me in a subtle way, and I didn't even realize it when it happened. It was so subtle and so quick. 6 months, 4 साल का 6 महीने में गायब, almost गायब. I was shocked. And I went to Melbourne after 6 months. Things happened. Fortunately, I said, "No, I should go back." And devotee said, "No, Prabhu, you should come back. Don't be there." So I went back, and I was back as if I had never left Australia. It happened so quickly. And what is the reason behind it? It's only and only devotee association. There was no other variable to it. There was no other variable. I was chanting, I was listening here and there, but something was missing, and that was devotee association. So, I know it's a long-winded answer, Prabhu, to your short question, but only chanting, I think, may not be possible for most of us. It's not possible for me, I know. I cannot speak for others, I speak for myself. And Prabhupada said, it's better to be with devotees and chant, and Ramchandra Prabhu often says that devotee association is also the key. And he practices it also, and he encourages all of us to come to center for this exact reason. Because if we don't come to center even once a week, it's going to be very difficult in a place like US, New Jersey, with our families, with our work, with our commitments to practice Krishna consciousness in a healthy way. So, I don't know if that addresses your question, Prabhu.
Absolutely, thank you. It was more for a friend who was an introvert, and I was trying to figure out if there is a way I could have a dialogue with him.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you for asking. Yes, Prabhu. Yes, Mataji.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Krishna.
It was a very wonderful that that everybody can feel, I think. So my question is, you said like chanting by ourselves is not sufficient, but in this age, like we have access to senior devotees lectures online, right? Like chanting also gives you a lot of experiences, like a lot of reciprocation in so many ways. Does that experiences, along with listening to the lectures online, or like the senior devotees like Shravanam, and chanting, that also gives you like a lot of experiences, like reciprocation from the Lord in so many different ways. Isn't this enough to keep us going? Because sometimes I do feel like if you are in a certain stage of experience, when you are associating with devotees like who are not at that level of experience, it sometimes doesn't motivate you to go ahead.
So just to make sure I understood your question, Mataji, thank you for the question. You said ki chanting along with hearing online from senior Vaishnavas, is that okay? Because sometimes we are not able to find like-minded devotees who can motivate us. Did I understand that right?
Not like-minded devotees, I would
Or
say.
devotees who can motivate or inspire us.
Who's as intense as you are on your path.
Yeah.
Because like online, the senior devotees, they are very intense. You can feel that intensity in their lectures.
Yeah.
But in person, it's very rare to find devotees with such level of intensity and bhava.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. My honest answer would be that both have to be done. And if you are not finding somebody as intense, like an in-person devotee who's as intense as somebody you've heard online, then you have to make an effort to. There are devotees like that.
Yes.
There are devotees like that.
Yeah.
You just have to find them. So the point is, online hearing is fine, but it is not sufficient. It is necessary, but not sufficient. I also hear online, but whenever I get a chance, if I can hear somebody in person, that is recommended. And I've heard that from senior Vaishnavas also, that as long as Vapu is available, whether it's of your Guru Maharaj or senior Vaishnavas, devotee friends, you should take Vapu, which means in-person association. If and when Vapu is not available, then one can go for Vani. Vani means just hearing them through their words, like we hear from Prabhupada now, because we cannot be with him in person. But we can hear his powerful words. There's nobody like Prabhupada. Just, you hear him and you wake up every morning and you're like, wow, what just hit me? Like another bomb just hit on my head. And so the answer, Mataji, is like, as much as we feel that we don't find anybody in person, we have to remain sincere, and Krishna will send somebody. That is for sure. So my only request from experience, from what I've heard and what I've seen, would be that try and not think of it as less important. It's very important actually. If you don't associate with, even if it's not like-minded or somebody who motivates you, just pray to Krishna that I'm coming, I'm not feeling motivated, and Krishna is a person. So he will reciprocate in his, but the only thing is Krishna reciprocates in his time and in his style. So that may take a while, which is okay. But the bottom line is in-person association is critical if it's available. In COVID times, we all know we didn't have time for in-person, so it was difficult. For me, it was very difficult. And I know for other devotees also, it was very difficult in COVID, only online. And we were hearing from, exalted Vaishnavas. But that in-person, and Prabhupada said this, we are social beings. We should not try and deny that. We are social beings. We need other people. Some people need more people. Some people need less people. But it is said that you should have at least one friend in Krishna consciousness. So have that one friend who you can open up your heart to, ideally more. But I know it's not easy, and it's hard to find like-minded devotees. But then pray to Krishna, and hopefully Krishna sends somebody your way soon. So does that answer your question, Mataji, a little bit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
The other thing, online we don't have prasad.
That's a very important thing, no prasad. Ramchandra Prabhu, has something? Okay. I think we are at time, and like to end here. Again, thank